character profile time. We've got a classic character. We haven't done one for a while, have we?
I know, it feels like we haven't. We've done lots of talking about the past. We haven't had a good old-fashioned classic character profile for a little while.
Now, I'm glad that we waited this long to do this character, because I really had no idea who he was until we did our... was it a Patreon episode where we did about deaths in Coronation Street? So I learned about him from his terrible end, and that's a bit of a spoiler here, because he does die on screen. But
it's all right. I think we can spoil things that are from like 50 years ago.
Yes. But he is in the show. He was in the show. Was he one of the first characters?
Original 20? His first appearance was in episode 2, I think, of the podcast.
So he is one of the original characters created by Tony Warren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've been cool. Watching him and enjoying his adventures on the classic Coronation Street DVDs the past month or so.
I'm very tempted to tell everybody exactly what I think about Harry Hewitt, but no, that's what the entire point of the profile is. So first of all, I will tell you the facts of the matter. He was born on the 24th of February 1921, and he died on the 6th of September 1967. His parents were Thomas and Mary Hewitt. He had a
couple of sisters.
Alice Hewitt was born in 1920, and Frances Hewitt was born in 1922. He was married to Elizabeth Harding in 1948 and Concepta Riley in 1961, the original barmaid. He had 2 children, Lucille Hewitt in 1949 and Christopher Hewitt in 1962. His first appearance was on the 14th of December 1960, last appearance 6th of December 1967. He was in 306 episodes, and he was played by Ivan Beavis.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said earlier you didn't really know much about who he was before the Deaths episode, and I think that's the same with me. He definitely doesn't seem to have gone down as a proper classic character, despite being one of the originals, and I think he's kind of gone under the radar of a lot of Coronation Street fans, but I've quite appreciated watching him.
I've got a fondness for him because he reminds me of my granddad.
Oh, does he?
Well, he's a very stoic, sort of handsome gentleman who's very quiet and reserved, and he smokes a pipe, which just reminds me of my granddad.
But he's not granddaddy, is he?
He is to me.
In the show. I suppose when you were younger, your granddad may have been closer.
My granddad was younger when I was younger.
Yeah, but he doesn't strike me as being an old man. He's older than we are now. He's not an old man.
He's in fine form.
Yeah, and he's certainly kind of a man's man, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I think I see him as having very traditional values, and he wants to go to work, and then his wife does the stuff at home. But I like him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And some of these, manly men kind of buildery types on Coronation Street, I don't really enjoy, like Owen or Len Fairclough or whatever. But I do like Fat Feeling. But Harry, I've been pleasantly surprised by.
Just seems like a nice chap.
But he's not been a main character, has he? It's fair to say. He's often just seen there, propping at the bar with a beer.
Hangs around.
Yeah, basically. And at the current stage we're at, and watching the DVDs, he's gone off, hasn't he? He's going to come back again in a few discs, I think, before he meets his grisly end. But that's a bit of a spoiler. Let's go back and find out about what happened in the early life of Harry Hewitt. Actually, no, before even that, I've got to tell you a little bit about how he got the job on Coronation Street, because he wasn't always an actor. He'd been an audit clerk, an accountant, and a company secretary before he got bitten by the acting bug. And then his first TV role was in a Granada sitcom called The Army Game. And then from that, he was headhunted and picked to go on to episode 2 of Coronation Street. So
I missed my window to become an actress, because now they've got high definition TV. I don't think I could. I think when back in the day when it was all a bit blurry, I would have been fine.
No, they need people of all shapes and sizes. Harry Hewitt then went to school at Hardcastle's factory school.
This was all before the show.
This is all for the
exactly.
Facts. Yeah, this is all facts from, I guess, from one of the Darren Little books or something. But he's got his first job, age 15, as a bus conductor.
Where did you get this information from?
Corriepedia, of course, and also some of the books that I've got on my shelf.
You really should be referencing all of your sources.
I know. So we've seen him as bus conductor on the show, haven't we? He's like in his first appearance, he was there with his bus conductor's hat at the bar. He's always looking smart.
Yes, like a man in uniform.
His mum, Mary, had some serious mental issues, and one night he came home drunk from work, and I think it might have been his first day as a bus conductor at age 15, if Corriepedia is to be believed. He came home drunk from work, and then his mum attacked him with a kitchen knife. And then the neighbours then had to restrain her while an ambulance came and got her, and she spent the rest of her life in an asylum before dying in 1947. Harry did not go to her funeral, so he held a bit of a grudge against his mum. You come after me with a kitchen knife and that's it, you're cut out from my life.
This definitely smacks to me of Darren Little.
Why?
Because Darren Little liked to invent outlandish and dramatic soap-like backstories for characters.
Like the drama didn't just start in 1960, it's been going all the way. This street is cursed.
Normally when a character is introduced in the show now, they have one interesting fact about their lives before being in the show. Like the Harris family were on the run, and like Aggie is killed a man.
Well, if you think that his mum coming after him with a knife was drama, then you wait to what happens next in Harry's life. World War II.
Oh no, that's a bit of a drama, wasn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit of one.
What a kerfuffle.
It was all right for Harry at first because he had a foot problem, so he wasn't called up.
Was it bone spurs?
I don't know what his foot problem was, or whether he was just, having a bit of a limp to try and get out of it.
Harry Hewitt does not strike me as a dishonourable man who would try to get out of being called
coward.
up.
Anyway, his dad ended up shaming him into signing up in 1940 after his sister Alice's husband was killed in a battle.
He had
to take his place, I guess.
I wouldn't have found that a compelling argument.
I know.
What do you mean he's dead?
He was killed. My brother-in-law was killed. Yeah, fine. That sounds like a great
right, then
job,
I'll step
actually.
up then. I guess the further the war goes on, the fewer people die. Is that how it works?
He came back to live with his dad after the war, and then he got a promotion at work. I've said that he got a promotion to conductor, so I don't know what he was before. Maybe he was a ticket collector or something like this. I don't know what the difference is. Anyway, he's head honcho on the bus by the end of the war. And then he had a bit of a competition with Len Fairclough for the affections of a young dame named Nellie Briggs. Whoa. But then he ended up getting out with Lizzie Harding instead, who he married in 1947. They had a kid called Lucille the following year. Then his dad died a few years before that, so they were able to move into number 7 Coronation Street together, and number 7 was where he was living at the beginning of the show. That's right, he was, but not Lucille and not Lizzie, because the next bit of tragedy in Harry's life was in 1957 when 1959, when Elizabeth was killed by an out-of-control bus. So it was a slippery night, one January, February, I'm going to say, and she was... I can't remember what she was doing. She was working in the bus kind of place as well, I think, and a bus skidded on the ice, splattered right into her, and that was the end of Lizzie.
That's like if I got killed by an out-of-control child.
Yes, it is, I suppose.
The equivalent, isn't it?
Yeah, no, so that was like the year before the programme started. So when we joined Harry in 1960, he'd been relatively recently widowed. Is that what he's saying? But we still didn't have Lucille living with him because, as we said last week in the 1960, a little bit in the middle, he could not cope with bringing up a daughter on his own with no woman in the house. What would you do?
I don't think it wasn't that he couldn't cope. I think it was more the case that nobody expected him to.
Well, he sent her to a children's home, and I did read actually on Corrie that he felt a little bit guilty about it. But even so, it was the done thing, I guess, back then, to send your kid to a home if you haven't got a mum to cook her tea or
what the hell are you supposed to do with a child if you're a man? Back in 1960.
I don't know. So, Gemma, 1960. We already talked about it last week, but remind us, what did we get up to?
There were very few episodes of Coronation Street in 1960, but during that time...
One would say less than 10, or fewer than 10.
Lucille arrived on the street because she ran away from the orphanage. I think she wanted to spend Christmas with her dad. Mm-hmm. So Esther Hayes looks after her while Harry goes to work. And Esther Hayes just spent the whole time trying to make herself useful, but it never really worked for her, did it?
No.
And Sister Alice comes to help out, but doesn't like...
This already doesn't make sense, because I've said here that Alice comes and stays for 2 months within...
Don't remember
that within the month of 1960. I think that's probably 1961 that happens.
She doesn't like her, so she leaves.
Yeah.
Florrie Linley and Eileen Hughes fancy Harry, but he only has eyes for the beautiful Irish barmaid Concepta Riley.
See, I'd forgotten when we first started watching the DVDs that Harry and Concepta ended up together. Even though we'd done a character profile of both Lucille and Concepta, I'd forgotten. So we kind of caught them again in the latter half of the 1961 DVD, and they were courting, and they made a fairly nice couple. Although Concepta ended up being, not the most thrilling of characters, did she?
No, she certainly
let you down.
Don't let me down.
Well, you
How
had high
dare you.
hopes for Concepta Riley.
I tempered my expectations. She was just the female equivalent of Harry Hewitt. She was a decent woman.
Yeah.
She was no frills. She's got on with her life.
I think she
didn't know she was in a soap.
I think he didn't like the fact that she wanted to work. Was that maybe caused a few issues?
What a man.
Is that your dream, man?
It is
Somebody who
actually,
says,
yeah.
no, Gemma,
I haven't got
you
time.
stay in bed.
I haven't got time. I spent all day making marmalade today. He's got time for work.
That sounds like a proper 1960s housewife thing to do, isn't it? Making some marmalade.
Spent all
Maybe a
day
nice
doing it.
Victoria sponge.
No. I haven't got time for that nonsense.
So he ended up proposing to her later on in that year in 1961. They went to Blackpool together on a trip, and he proposed to her then. And I think that was the Blackpool episode when they had the little musical skit in the middle of it. By the end of the year, they were married. Interestingly, that caused a bit of a kerfuffle because Concepta was Irish Catholic, whereas Harry Hewitt was like C of E. And back then, that was not the done thing at all for those people to get married. And then
it still is a big thing now. And I remember when my granddad died, must have been during the 90s. His neighbour refused to come to the funeral because she said she was Catholic and she said she wasn't allowed to go. I remember watching her out of the window as we drove off with the hearse, crying because she couldn't go to the funeral.
Wow.
Just seemed like a very odd thing to. I don't know.
I think
I'm
I
not
would
very religious
maybe
myself.
say that many Catholics and Protestants might get over it, and
I think we're being a bit controversial, but from my very low understanding of things, it just seems a bit odd.
Well, I just wonder whether if there was a Catholic and a Protestant getting married in Coronation Street these days, would there be people writing letters to Granada?
I don't think anyone would notice. But don't forget also, remember Tony Blair? He and Cherry Blair, she was Catholic, and everyone made a massive fuss about her being
You're
Catholic.
right.
And then when...
So Corrie really was ahead of its time.
And everyone kept
with
saying when Tony Blair was in power, like, he's secretly a Catholic, he's secretly a Catholic. And then when he was voted out or left the office, he did convert to being a Catholic. Everyone went, aha! I knew he was a dirty Catholic the whole time.
Yeah, you're right. Well, blimey, this must have been the
And
original issues-based story in Coronation Street. Who said that they're just for these days?
And I'm allowed to say dirty Catholic because my mother's a dirty Catholic.
So I think that I'm not sure whether Coronation Street had really clicked that this was the case, and it might have been the viewers that ended up telling them. Now, hang on a minute, I think there'd be a bit more controversy.
No way, they
around
would
here.
know. They would know.
But
Everyone, this is a big deal.
well, I don't know whether they'd made a big thing of the fact that he was Protestant and she was Catholic, or whether people just said, hang on a minute, she must have been Catholic because she came from Ireland, and he must have been.
Stereotypes much.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I think. But anyway, they ended up incorporating it into the story, whereby Harry had to win Concepta's family's approval of it. And here's another fact as well, and I don't know whether you remember this, but on the DVD episode we watched their wedding, and it had a different arrangement of the theme tune. There was like a slower, jazzier, weird kind of version of it.
It's the tune that gets played when a Catholic and a Protestant marry.
Yeah, maybe.
The same tune played when my parents were wed.
So they got married, and a bit of fireworks at the beginning because he basically wanted to go out and spend the night drinking with Len.
And she didn't want him to do that.
She did not. Neither did she want to sleep in the same wife. No, in the same bed. In the same bed as he'd slept with his
Harry,
late
this
wife.
is your old wife. I'm not sleeping on this.
But she ended up going in the bed
Did she just
anyway
get over
because
it?
she did just get over it because they couldn't afford a new bed.
She could at least flip the mattress.
Maybe they did.
Did
that.
she die in the bed? No, she didn't. What's her problem then?
1962. Harry has a fight with Len when he insults Concepta. Probably calls her a dirty Catholic or something. Harry wins the fight. Good for him. Because, Len was definitely handy with his fist, renowned for it. Also that year, Harry had a pair of Whippet dogs, and Concepta forced Harry to get rid of them. So he swapped them for a greyhound called Lucky Lolita.
I'm going to say that not really what she had in mind.
No, I don't think you should. But it was all right because she ended up quite getting to love Lucky Lolita, but unfortunately, by the time she ended up falling in love with this dog, Harry decided that he wanted to sell her because she'd won a string of races and he could make a bit
Worth
of profit
more.
with this race-winning dog. But then she ended up losing races.
Oh, no, it's
so they
up and
weren't
down,
going to
isn't
sell
it?
her. But then they sold her anyway because he wanted to buy a car.
Because you can't ride a whippet.
You can't. No, you can't. Exactly.
Or a greyhound.
No, you think you're going to get there fast, but actually,
Also,
car is probably the better option.
having owned a whippet, they're very, very lazy. They run very fast for about 5 minutes and then they sit on the floor and fall asleep and fart all day.
Do you think that they could have put Lucille on the whippet? Would she have been able to carry it?
Maybe
Like
when
she'd
she was
she had a fishing pole with a sausage just dangling it or something.
Maybe when she was a plucky little orphan, but eventually once they got married, once he got married to Concepta, I do think that Lucille moved back out of the orphanage and
Yeah, I think.
in with the
she was
family.
back on the show at this point, wasn't
Yeah.
she? I don't really like Lucille Hewitt, I have to say.
I think she's quite cute.
I don't find her cute at all. I find her a little bit odd. She seems to be older.
She's like an old lady stuck in
I
a
can't
little
remember-
girl's body
yeah.
who likes...
No, I think that she's a little girl, it's like an older lady. She seemed, I can't remember how much older the actress who played Lucille was than the character, but whenever she comes down in her school uniform, she does kind of strike me as being a bit Jimmy Cranky-ish. Or
You
know, when
always criticise her hairstyles.
she does have very
I've never
60s
known
child
you
hair.
have such strong opinions on anyone's hair before.
She was also a bit Moaning Myrtle. You know, the actress who plays Moaning Myrtle was about
Yeah.
20 years older than the character was supposed to
Yeah.
be. But she annoys me, Lucille Hewitt, I
How
have to
dare
say.
you.
So I'm not surprised that he sent her off to the orphanage. What else have we had? Oh yeah, the big story for the Hewitts in 1962 though was when their son Christopher
was born first of all in 1962, and then
no, he was. Oh yeah, sorry, he was.
thank you.
Then he was kidnapped on their first wedding anniversary party.
Yeah,
and that
we
was
saw
another
this.
episode we watched on the DVD as well. They found his empty pram on a waste ground.
We saw this, didn't we? This happened right before an ad break or something because they actually took the cameras out to some kind of like
Yeah, a bit of OB.
disused wasteland or whatever, and there was a policeman there and a bunch of children who'd found the empty pram.
Yeah, I'm sure that Harry was very stoic through the whole ordeal.
very.
Whereas Concepta was going a bit crazy, as she
Well,
would.
she made it.
Well, he
didn't
made
she?
it too.
No, he didn't brew it.
Anyway, it turns out that he was kidnapped by a lady called Joan Akers, whose own baby son had recently died. So that reminds me a little bit of Kevin's second wife Alison, when she had a dead baby and then she stole Sarah Louisa's. She stole little Bethany. Anyway, that certainly struck a chord with the nation because that particular episode got Corrie its highest ratings ever. Well,
Wow.
at the time, of course, it has improved it ever so slightly since then. Although
Yeah,
I don't know
well,
whether these days it's getting higher than it was back in 1962.
In 1963, Harry agreed to move to Ireland with Concepta, but then decided to remain in Weatherfield because Lucille refused to move.
Yeah, she wanted to finish off her schooling there, and she had friends and stuff, so they decided to cancel those plans.
So was it Ireland? It was Ireland, not Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So he has a row with Concepta about it because she wants to go, but then she agreed to stay in England anyway.
Yeah, and he has to get a new job because I think he quits his job on the buses and says, right, let's go off to Ireland. And then they change their mind and he's like, oh, I've got to find a new job now. So he becomes a chauffeur at Amalgamated Steel. And I can't remember any of that happening on the DVDs that we watched. I think by like in the 1963 episodes, I can't remember a huge amount of Harry
spotty.
Hewitt on it. Yeah, we do. Yeah, and then in 1964, where we're up to now, they do end up going to Ireland for good. Well, for a little while anyway.
For good, but for a little while.
Good for a little while. So
Okay.
Concepta's dad has to retire, so she starts nagging Harry again about going over to Ireland. Go on, let's move over to Ireland.
Oh,
go on. So he's like, all right, woman.
God damn it.
So to try to get over the problem of Lucille wanting to stay there, Annie Walker offers to step into the breach and look after her for a while, which seems odd to me.
Yeah.
Because her and Jack seem like they've got a pretty happy life running the Rovers, and why on earth you'd want to have a teenage girl getting under your feet is beyond me. But
Well, the thing is about Annie Walker is that she has a reputation for being quite a formidable, grand, stuffy, snobby old lady. But in the episodes we've seen so far, she just seems like yes, she's very grand and she certainly thinks she's above everybody else, but she's nice enough to everyone.
She doesn't talk down to people, does she?
She doesn't.
She's very convivial
host.
with the She may kind of make remarks about the some of her less well off clientele to Jack when they're alone together, but she's very very good hostess.
But I have to add, a lot of the time her comments are well founded.
True. So that was the year of 1964. The whole family were going to be axed by Tim Aspinall, who had just come in as producer. He was convinced to keep Lucille on the show because she was the only young character, and they wanted to get the kids watching, I guess. So also that year, this is a weird story. Some of the Hewitts, so Doreen Keogh, who played Concepta, along with Ivan Beavis, Harry, they got into a stage play at the end of the year, along with some of the other Coronation Street cast who had left the show around that time. So Lynn Carroll, who played Martha Longhurst.
Because Tim Aspinall was called the Axeman, the Mad Axeman. Yeah. I know that what's his face was also called that, but he was the original.
Yeah. So Lynn Carroll, Frank Pemberton, who played Frank Barlow, and Ruth Holden, who played Vera Lomax, they all toured in this comedy stage show called Firm Foundations about a northern bra manufacturer.
Don't tell Alia, for God's sake.
I know. It's like the precursor to Underworld, but apparently the whole thing was a disaster. It was a farce, and I think some of the actors didn't know that it was going to be a farcical show before they started. And even Susan Jameson, who played Myra Booth, went along to rehearsals. She signed up with the rest of her Corrie ex-castmates, and walked out of rehearsals because she's like, no, I'm not doing this. It's a load of rubbish, and it got bad reviews, and it's quietly disappeared. But Harry did come back to Weatherfield briefly in 1965 to check up on Lucille. And then come over to Ireland with us. Now you've done your exams or whatever. And she's like, no, it's fine. I've got a job. I'm perfectly okay. Thank you very much. And Annie was like, oh, good. You can stay here a little longer. Wonderful.
Right, so in 1967, the Hewitts returned to Weatherfield for the final time so they could go to Elsie and Steve's wedding.
Yes,
well, that's a spoiler wedding I didn't want to read about.
Oh, no. Here comes another one, Gemma. Watch out.
No, I knew about this one. So I thought they were on the way to the wedding, but this says afterwards. So it was definitely transporting to or from the wedding. I remember this because I researched this for when we did our Patreon episode. Len's van breaks down, so Harry says, I'm going to help you out and sort it out. He goes underneath it.
Yeah,
it gets jacked up, puts bricks underneath it. He puts himself underneath, and the whole thing slips off, and he gets crushed to death.
That seems really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I assume it's on the DVD. I hope it is.
Oh yeah, well I've seen it anyway. This was a really interesting scene too, not just because of how gruesome the death was.
I really don't think I've seen this.
But due to the fact, Harry Hewitt dies in hospital. But what actually happened when they filmed the scene was that they literally did hold up this van with bricks, and the stuntman says, I'm not doing that, it's very unsafe. So the actor himself, Ivan, says, well, I'll do it then, don't worry about it. And they had this metal jack that was off camera holding it up.
Or so they thought.
They did the film of him going underneath it. Then they realised that they hadn't actually put this jack in after all. And
Health and safety was different back in the old days, wasn't it?
It was non-existent. And the quote from the actor was, and then I came out and they put the dummy under, and this van just went bang and split the dummy's head in two as fast as that. All I could think was, that could have been me.
Yeah. So literally just he sat there and watched this dummy
just die.
Been splattered. And
so he was under there like just seconds before this.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what would they have done? Do you think this could? I mean, really, if you think about it, that
tried
could
to cover it up.
That could have led to the whole show just being cancelled.
You're right, actually. If one of the actors had been killed,
especially in 1967.
Yeah. Because I think also towards the end of the 60s, Coronation Street might have been losing steam a little bit. Yeah.
And it would have been cursed. Anyway, so lots of people didn't really like the fact that they killed off Harry Hewitt.
No, he's a nice guy.
Lucille too. She didn't.
He's very watchable. I'm enjoying him a lot.
He's great.
Yeah, even though he's not had loads of stories, just as a dependable, reliable, nice guy. He's not nasty at all, is he?
No, he's just a decent bloke.
Yeah, even and we kind of made a joke in the '60s thing last week that he's a bit of a feckless dad for sending his daughter off because he's a bit hopeless, but he doesn't come across as that at all. Like, you know, when Tim came into the programme, he was a bit of a layabout and he couldn't look after Faye. Not at all. He just is like, you know, a busy guy.
Well, you know, I mean, gender roles weren't great for women at the time, but you can excuse a man for having started a family under the understanding that he was to provide monetarily for his family, and his wife would provide the care for the children and make the home and do the dinner. And then when his wife dies, he's like, well, I have no life skills to do any of this. Especially back in the 1960s, it's not like it is now.
Yeah.
You could just go down to the co-op and get some macaroni and cheese and tell her to sit down in front of the iPad until you get home from work.
Very true. Well, you said that Lucille didn't like the fact that Harry was killed off, but actually Ivan had asked to be killed off.
It was Ivan Beavis's fault.
In the same way, it's probably like the reaction to Rana last year, where the actress asked to be killed off, and then all the fans are like, no, how dare you kill her off? But yeah, he wanted to be killed off because he was trying to get different acting gigs, and he was, and the fact that he was a Corrie actor,
yeah, they kept saying,
was kind of getting in the way. You're from Corrie. You might go back to Corrie, and he's like, no, I want to sever all ties with Coronation Street.
I don't actually know what he went on to do.
No, I usually write that down. I've forgotten to write down what Ivan Beavis did after Coronation Street, but he did. He went on to do other things. So you gonna do a little bit of finding out.
He was a pretty handsome chap, I thought. I think he could have done whatever he put his hand to. But I like the quote that he made about what his character.
I found this quote. I think this might have come from one of the books. Actually, he said in an interview sometime, Harry was a something of nothing character, and because of that, everyone liked him. And I found I had mates across the country. So he certainly wasn't controversial, but it is true, I would say, from what little I've seen of him, that he is a bit of a something of nothing character. He's not somebody that, you know, that is going to appear on anyone's top 10 Coronation Street lists. But he was just, a nice background kind of. He kind of reminds me of Lloyd or something like that, because I wouldn't say that Lloyd ever had mega stories, but everybody kind of liked him, the sort of guy that you want to have a drink with.
It looks like he had lots of different roles. I mean, he died in 1997 at the age of 71 on Christmas Eve in Northampton. He was in The Bill for a little bit. He was in Casualty.
Who did it? Does it say who played in The Bill?
No, just a random person.
Extra people.
Paradise Postponed, Shine On, Harvey Moon. He wasn't massive characters in any of these. He was in Z Cars.
Oh, yeah.
Which is and he was also in the... Oh, I've forgotten how you say that word.
Onedin
Line.
I don't know. No,
that's a famous one.
He did. He looked like he had quite a good few roles then. He has
lots of little roles. He was in The Liverbirds for a few episodes.
Yeah.
6 Days of Justice as a warrant officer. Wow.
This list just goes on and on and on.
Dixon of Dock Green. Now that's a famous 70s show.
So Coronation Street was a real launch pad for him, wasn't it? Because he was only in that. Well, I mean, he was in the Army guys or whatever beforehand at Coronation Street, and if you're in Corrie, that's going to make a name for yourself, isn't it? That's what lots of actors and actresses use.
He had lots of roles through the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, but I'm sure he had Coronation Street to thank for most of those
roles.
Well,
it says here he was most known for Coronation Street, 6 Days of Justice and The Black Arrow.
That's quite funny. There's a picture of what he looked like when he was older there. We're just on IMDb at the moment. Yeah. He looks a little bit like, what's his face in The Vicar of Dibley there, doesn't he?
No.
Sorry, I'm late, Vicar.
No, not at all.
He does. He's got a beard and a flat cap. What more do you need? Any final thoughts on Harry?
Yes, I have
yes, you do, don't you?
This arrived today. I bought this kind of as a mini Valentine's Day present for us both, which goes to show how sad my life has become. This is a copy of Woman magazine, which is the world's greatest weekly for women, which is written here, so I don't know how true that actually is. It's from the week ending 9th of March 1963. So bear in mind, this was only, say, 2 years into Corrie actually being on TV. And inside they've only got 2 cover lines. The first one is ravishing new hats, 2 to knit, 1 to sew, and the second one is big extra Coronation Street cookbook.
As a magazine aficionado, Gemma, somebody who's in the biz, how does that cover measure up?
It's got a lovely lady with a bob and a pencil ready to take notes.
She's giving eye contact.
But I don't know what she wants to take notes about.
So what's this got to do with Harry Hewitt? Our listeners are wondering.
This Coronation Street cookbook has got. I love this so much.
It's a little
like
insert. We'll put some pictures of it online.
So it's a cookbook, and it has got Sunday tea at the vestry with Ina, Minnie, and Martha. Dinner at the Young Barlows with Valerie and Ken. So they've got. So the tea at the vestry is like Sunday tea kind of thing. Dinner is like meals for families. Slap up spread at the Rovers with Annie Walker's kind of buffet meals. Breakfast at the Hewitts, which we'll get to in a minute. Off the shelf snacks at the corner shop. Florrie Lindley is really tragic section where she cooks food with cans from her shop. And then you've got candlelight suppers with Elsie Tanner because she's a bit of a minx, and she her favourite dish is coffee chiffon. But the breakfast at the Hewitt, so it says Concepta sends Harry to work with a hot breakfast and a packed lunch, and it gives you recipes. So you've got sausage.
She's a keeper, Harry.
Sausage and egg scramble. My favourite, kippers in a colander.
Kippers in a colander?
Yeah, you
gotta drain those kippers.
All you need is 2 ingredients: a pair of kippers and some butter. So you stick the colander over boiling water, put the kippers on greaseproof paper, stick them in the colander, stick them on a plate, steam for 10 minutes, and put a knob of butter on the top.
Yeah, Fanny Craddock would have been proud of her for that one.
Boxty potato cakes, which I don't know what that is. But there's
we need to try out some of this.
I know.
We need to have a vintage 60s Coronation Street meal party spread thing.
Don't worry. There is a picture here of Boxty potato cakes, and the caption is, Concepta, Irish herself, makes sizzling hot Boxty potato cakes. And also the other thing she makes are fat rascals.
What's that?
I don't know. It looks like it's flour, butter, brown sugar, currants, milk.
Oh, currants.
It looks like some kind of doughy thing.
Nice.
And then the packed meals. This is what you would enjoy if you were married to Concepta Riley.
Yes.
You would have fillings for barm cakes, baps or jannocks.
Jannocks? What's a jannock?
Of bacon spread, grated Leicester cheese and cold sausage with chutney. Meat pasties, oh god no, it's corned beef and baked beans mixed together.
Oh Christ! Got me a baked beans.
My god!
She probably thought it was Nouvelle Cuisine at the time.
Oh, it probably was, yeah. Lancashire Parkin, which looks really nice, which has got mixed spice, ginger, flour, oatmeal, treacle, soft brown sugar and milk, or homemade toffee.
Oh, that's good.
Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
Lovely.
But look, here's an example of poor Florrie Lindley. Florrie Lindley cooks for one, but there's plenty for the unexpected caller.
Well, she shouldn't have if she had a secret husband come back, then maybe she could have a meal for 2.
She makes quick dishes from a store of packets and cans.
That's really sad. I imagine her working at the shop day, and then she's like, as she goes upstairs to the flat, she's like, oh, which tin shall I pick off the shelf tonight?
Well, listen to what she makes. Speedy tuna pie, which is made of a can of tuna, a can of mushroom soup, mashed potatoes powder, tomatoes and butter.
That's tragic. That really is tragic.
It is horrible. Frankfurter
No wonder she had a mental breakdown.
Frankfurter soup, which is a can of meat or vegetable broth, 1 rasher of streaky bacon, a packet of Frankfurter sausages, and chopped parsley. Gosh. Here's the. I'm not even going to get into what this. I'll leave this to your imagination. Steak and rice quickie. So it's 2.
You could have a quickie tonight with Florrie Lindley. This isn't about Florrie Lindley.
What better for Valentine's Day?
Indeed. Right.
We'll hear more about this, I'm sure, if we ever get around to cooking.
Oh, we just got. Oh yeah. We need to have a whole day. You need to cook me a Hewitt breakfast. Who had the lunch? Well, a Young Barlow's.
Young Barlow's.
Yeah.
Stuffed liver, Michael.
Oh, maybe we should have it when Corrie turns 60 later in the year.
I was thinking about this.
Oh yes, we can put the photos on Instagram.
Sunday tea at the vestry includes Lancashire wake cake. So yeah,
we're probably just offending all our northern listeners because they probably all eat this kind of stuff.
What's wrong with a quickie?
There's people tucking into their fat rascals this morning for breakfast while they're listening to the episode 404.
I mean, I absolutely love vintage women's magazines. It's one of my favourite things. But on the back of the cover is an advert for Cross and Blackwell baked beans, and one of the recipes is beans mashed up in sandwiches with Worcester sauce.
That's grim. That is good. No wonder they started like going to. It was around this time that Italian food came in, wasn't it? Because they have taught recently on the classic Coronation Street about I'm gonna. What did they say? Was it a lasagna or bolognese or someone? And they were like, ooh, what's that?
Yes, I remember them talking about it because this was also what was it? There was a TV show, a really famous April Fool's joke, where they pretended that they harvested spaghetti from trees, and apparently for years after, people still thought that's how you made pasta.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I know
Simpler
that England,
times.
I know that Great Britain in general has a really bad reputation for food, but if you're basing it off of women's magazines from 1963, then you just need to know that that's not what we eat in this country anymore.
Well, I think we've gone off topic slightly, so
okay.
We'll just end this by saying Harry Hewitt, nice revelation for a character. Literally knew nothing about him.
He's a decent chap.
I knew what he looked like via his profile picture on Corriepedia, and that's about it. But I leave my experience watching these 60s DVDs with a newfound appreciation for him, and I'd kind of like to see him in some extra episodes. But I am looking forward to seeing his grisly end when we manage to get around to the 1967 DVD.
Yeah. That's something to look forward to.
Indeed it is. I hope you enjoyed listening to this and learning like we did.
Mm-hmm.
So
learn with us.
Yes, that's what the podcast is for. It's for education as well as entertainment.
And entertainment, yeah.
Yeah, when we're not funny, we'll just say we're for educational purposes.
You're not supposed to be having fun, you're learning.
That's what I say at school all the time.